Good morning, happy Sunday, and welcome to the Early Wedge. My name is Sia Nejad. I'm joined by Mike McClure and Jason Sobel. And gentlemen, a lot going on right now. We're going to touch on the FedEx St. Jude coming up next week, but we got to talk all things Wyndham Championship. And Jason, it's hard to say this out loud, and this is no disrespect to Cameron Young, but if you told me coming into Sunday, Cameron Young was going to have a comfortable 5-shot lead going into the final round, I would have told you you're living in an alternate universe.
For anyone, Sia, who believes that this golf tournament is over, I would like to introduce you to Cameron Young, who's played golf on the PGA Tour for a few years and doesn't seem to ever close out golf tournaments. I get it. He's up 5 on Nico Echeverria. He's up 8 on anybody else who's within striking distance. Weird things happen. It's hard to hold on to a lead. They say in the NHL, like a 2-goal lead is the toughest lead to hold, which I've never quite understood. You would think it would be a 1-goal lead. There's something to like a 5-shot lead is harder than a 1-shot lead because you've got to play some offense on this golf course. And he sounds like even after his round yesterday, he said, I just want to hit some greens in regulation. Keep going. It sounds like he's already getting into a defensive strategy. We'll see what happens.
Mike, it's interesting. I mean, I do want to touch on the without market, which places like BetMGM have. But before we do that, let's just talk about the straight up market, because Jason does listen. It's a 5-shot lead. I wish it was a 5-shot lead over like multiple people instead of just one person. With my guy Chris Kirk being a full 8 shots back, but it's minus 550, and we're not considering that number. But I do wonder, are you even looking at this? Like, again, I looked at the without market. Are you even looking at the straight up market with Nico Echeverria at plus 650, and then you got Ryan Kirk plus 3,000, plus 5,000, Jackson Koiven, Mac Meisner from there? Like, what are we looking at here, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're definitely looking more in the without market, but certainly I don't hate the idea of sprinkling on any of the long shots there. I mean, I think that it's basically, can Aaron Rye or Chris Kirk get there is as far back as I would be willing to go. Yeah. But I think the to Jason's point, while a 5-shot lead is a lot, it's not a 5-shot lead where the expected round is an even par round. That's the issue here, right? So like Cam Young, like there's a world where Cam Young shoots 2 under on the day, a conservative 2 under, and loses the golf tournament still. I mean, we've seen 7 and 8 under. That's not out of the cards in this particular setup at all. So it's far from a situation where you've got, that 5-shot lead again, where the field is essentially shooting even par. I don't think it's safe. Like, yes, it's extremely likely that he wins, but I certainly would not consider this tournament over at this point yet.
Yeah, it doesn't help for the chasers that Cam Young is just playing very sustainable golf, which you would imagine that would be the case with him being in first place here by 5 shots. But let's take a look at the without market, because I do find this intriguing. I don't know, gentlemen, you might criticize me for this, but yesterday, I'm already invested, and we'll get to your questions in a second. If you guys have more questions, let us know. I was big on Chris Kirk this tournament. I kind of thought he had a chance. He double bogeyed the second hole yesterday and kind of sort of took himself out of it. But he's still kind of lingering there. Nonetheless, if we look at the without market on BetMGM, we see obviously Nico Echeverria, the rightful top spot at plus 100. Then you got Aaron Rye plus 450, former champ from last year. Chris Kirk plus 800. Meisner, Koiven, Fitzpatrick behind them. What I did, Mike, was I went in on Kirk again in the without market. And I put 0.6 units on it. Let's just call it $60. I put $60 on it. You can do the math there, 6 times 8. And then I did a very small sprinkle, 0.1 on Rye and 0.1 on Jackson Koiven, almost as little safety bets. And effectively what I was doing was trying to cash in about 7X on Chris Kirk. And I was just trying to box out Nico Echeverria in the sense of, I don't think he's going to put this together again. So that's the one where I lose it all. But any thoughts on that, where I take a guy that's behind Nico and I sprinkle a couple safety bets and just hope Nico doesn't keep this up?
I think it's fine. Look, it's difficult to do. Like I agree that Kirk is playing extremely well and is very likely to move up there. Nico, while we know the talent he represents, I wouldn't necessarily expect him to maybe maintain on the leaderboard there. The issue that I have, the only issue that I have with it is Matt Fitzpatrick. Matt Fitzpatrick sitting at 10 under, 2 shots back of Kirk and some of the others. Fitzpatrick essentially had 1 bad round. He was incredible yesterday. We know how incredible he's been over the last month and a half of the season. That's my only issue on a scoreable course. There are just so many guys, like a 5-shot swing, for example. So look at where you're at 12, or Nico at 15. You have to be considering the 10 unders at minimum, but maybe the 9s. And the guys at 10 under, Fitzpatrick's the obvious one, but Davis Thompson's someone that we've seen many times go shoot a low round. For me, it's difficult to get into it. I understand why you do it. I understand why people want to do it. It does come down to your risk tolerance. For me personally, the way I play, I'm okay if I don't win that week, right? So like it's okay for me to not win in that spot. And I've seen over the years, there are many times where you can essentially give back more than you stand to make by someone like Matt Fitzpatrick, for example, shooting 6 under again today. Yeah, Jason, part of this, and I have to admit, part of this is me trying to create some action on the guy that I thought was going to be relevant today, which I guess he has an outside shot of being relevant. But Chris Kirk at plus 800, where it is a packed house, like in that Chris Kirk range. He's got to chase down Nico Echeverria, who's been really good on and around the green, which is expected on Bermuda for Nico Echeverria, certainly a birdie maker. But any thoughts on this with outboard? Forget about what I said. Like you can kind of critique that if you want, but do you look at any of these numbers and say, hey, I wouldn't mind sprinkling on this?
Look, I like Chris Kirk. Chris Kirk's been playing well. He's got the motivation to get into Memphis next week, and I think that's not a bad play. But my analysis here is going to be much more simplified, which is just I think Nico Echeverria is playing some really good golf. He's putting extremely well right now. I think he puts a run into Cam Young, and I think at the end it could be just the two of them. So in the without market, I really like Nico Echeverria at even money. I just think that makes a whole lot of sense. Stake to a 3-shot lead over anybody else on the board and playing some really good golf. Been there, done that. He's one of these guys that I've talked about over the last couple of months. I always have a problem with the overrated, underrated conversation, because it's like, well, tell me where you're rating them and I'll tell you if you've got them too high or too low. That said, I think collectively we tend to underrate Nico Echeverria. He doesn't get talked about that often, but this is a guy who, if this was an even numbered year, I think he'd be knocking on the door for a President's Cup international team berth. And he's been very, very good and probably a lot better than most people realize. And I like him today to put a scare into Cam Young. I'm not saying that he's going to beat him, but he's going to at least make it close. And in this market, I really like Nico.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that scares me is, Jason, I'm watching right now. I'm watching the morning. By the way, I've tweeted this out yesterday. I have Paul Peterson over Henrik Norlander right now, and he's 1 shot back with 6 shots to play. They were one of the first ones out. I'm watching Norlander out of the rough on a par 5, and you'll have to excuse me. I want to see where this ball goes, because I know a lot of people jumped on this play. Looks like he's going to have a tough birdie putt. So hopefully Paul Peterson is on the green here, but. And if you're tailing that, let us know. The thing about Nico that scares me is when I'm watching this morning, these greens, which I don't think are tricky in any way, I think people are really misjudging the speeds and just their reads are off a little bit. And that I have a lot of fear in that, because Chris Kirk, we saw him 3-putt the second hole. We've seen Nico Echeverria be really good around the green. So that's sort of what scares me, and kind of leads me, Jason, to thinking maybe Nico closes out second place here. But I know you have a follow-up.
I've been hosting postgame on PGA Tour Radio the last 3 nights, and I'll do so again tonight. And so we play a lot of interviews from all the players. And the one common theme about the greens that I keep hearing is that they're inconsistent throughout the day. Yeah. So that they're faster in the morning, which you'd actually think it'd be the other way around, that they bake out during the afternoon usually, and they get quicker. These guys are like, no, they're like putting on glass in the morning, and then the afternoon, the grass starts growing a little bit. They get a little bumpier. They get a little bit slower. That's the antithesis of what we usually see on the PGA Tour. And so I think you're right about the green speeds confounding some of these players, but it's less about the greens themselves, more about just it's contrary to what we usually see in most events, where they get quicker in the afternoon. I mean, I'm literally watching right now, like Whaley, who's having a terrible round, by the way. I mean, it was like a 3-footer, inside 3 feet maybe. He wasn't even close. I saw Malnati. I mean, these aren't exactly household players necessarily, but I think he had like a 15, 20-foot birdie putt. He put it like 6 or 7 feet past, like the speeds. And again, that does lend itself, I think, Jason, to kind of liking Nico Echeverria here, who's good on Bermuda and has been very good on and around the greens today. Can we look? Okay, so I want to get to some questions here. And then there's a few matchups. I don't want to go through every single one. If you have a matchup you want to ask us about, let us know. But
there was a few matchups in particular I wanted to get to. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, real quick on Kirk before things change and move. I'm optimistic on Kirk like you are. What if I told you the guy that leads the field in strokes gained tee to green? You can play his round score this morning at 69.5. A 1 under round is a cash ticket on Chris Kirk currently, who leads this field tee to green.
That's the thing. I'm looking at the tee to green metrics and I see he's leading. And when you have the outright ticket and you've got a guy leading the field tee to green and he's 8 shots back and he hasn't even been that horrible putting. It's like, man, Cam Young picked the worst time to just like jump ahead of everybody. Now, Fred George has the Kirk round score at 68.5 at -105. Mike, would you consider that at -105?
Yeah, I would still consider it at -105. The 69.5 is now up to -140. It was -130. It's trending that way. It probably will move to a 68.5 across the board rather quickly, I would guess. But yes, I would play it at 68.5, and yes, I would still play it at 69.5 at -140.
Okay. And we've got Gibber's picks. He says, is there any value on Fitzpatrick top 10 at +360, Mike? Fitzpatrick currently T7.
I would lean there. Let me see.
+360 seems like a pretty long number. That can't be right.
There's no way that's right.
Yeah.
If it is right, finish placing the bet before you type it in the chat because it's not going to be there long.
And also, if you want to clarify, Gippers, maybe you clarified later, but Chris Kirk is plus. Okay, so actually, Jeff Stenberg, you're talking about a 3-way matchup with ties. We're going to ice out the tie part. If we could put up the matchups and let's scroll all the way down towards the bottom where the Chris Kirk Aaron Rye matchup is, because again, I'm not trying to be too fixated on Chris Kirk. This is not the Chris Kirk show, but that was one of the 3 matchups I wanted to ask about. Mm-hmm. So FYI, I know we're going to pull that up in a second. I think when we don't include ties, Chris Kirk is like, he's +135 against Aaron Rye. Again, I'm not saying Chris Kirk is going to have this amazing round, but Jason, +135 against Aaron Rye. I mean, are we that confident in Aaron Rye? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, ball striking fiesta in that penultimate pairing. Aaron Rye ranks number 1 this week in strokes gained approach. Chris Kirk is number 3. They're both putting sort of right in the middle of the pack. Rye's been better off the tee. Kirk's been better around the greens. I do like Kirk. I just think that Kirk's got a little more motivation today to go out and post a good one. Long week for Rye. Anytime you get a guy who's a defending champion, who's kind of been there, done that, he started the week having a long week. All the extra media obligations. He had never won before on the PGA Tour, so he's not used to, kind of all the extra requests and all the extra things going around. It's a tiring week for a guy like that. I think Aaron Rye is as professional, which might not be the best word for it, as anybody on the PGA Tour, approaches the game with a certain seriousness that I really respect. I like the way he works at it and the way he strategizes his way about being a pro. That said, Kirk makes a lot more sense today, and especially at that big number. I would fire on that.
All right. As I watch Paul Peterson for Eagle, he's about 4 feet for birdie, maybe 4.5 feet for birdie. I don't know where Norlander is. If anybody wants to update me on that matchup, let me know. Because again, I know a lot of people are on that one. I'm glad you brought up the FedEx Cup standings. Mike, I am going to ask you about this matchup as well, but I don't know that anybody's jumped higher. Maybe there's a couple that have jumped higher than Chris Kirk as it stands right now, because he was on the outside looking in at 73 to make the playoffs. He's 59th right now, projected to be 59th. So he's moved up 14 spots. He could lose it, and by the way, from the early wedge, one of my 2 finishing positions were Grillo at top 40, including ties, and Chris Kirk top 20, including ties, which I think was like +300, +320, something like that. So we're trying to cash that one as well, but we do have to keep our eyes on the FedEx Cup standings. Matty Schmid is 66th right now, moved up 4 spots. Davis Thompson, who we brought up, has a lot on the line here. He's currently 68th, so he has to have a nice final round to make the top 70 here. But Mike, any thoughts on that matchup, Kirk and Aaron Rye +135?
Yeah, it would be the Kirk side. And it's more so like I like Kirk. I prefer to play the round score, especially when it's just a -1 round. Because there is a scenario that Rye shoots 6 under, Kirk shoots 5 under, and like that. That's very realistic. So it's more an indictment on the price point on Rye. Like I'm just not laying -170 against the guy that's leading the field tee to green. And it's not saying that Aaron Rye's not playing well and not a great fit. He is. They're probably 2 of the top 4 players right there in that spot. So that's where I would be. Commenting on the FedEx Cup standings, the Cam Young, obviously a huge mover too. He was, solidly there and at 40th heading in, but he's now projected 16th and just like firmly right there and can go make a bunch of money this week. And, again, a disastrous week this week where he was 40th. Could he have tailed off this season and not finished inside the top 50? Yeah, he definitely could have. So he was a big mover. Nico's a pretty big mover too, though, up to 44th at 20. If he stays right there, he's firmly going to play a couple more tournaments this year as well, which would be a huge, huge deal for him. And Aaron Rai, again, Aaron Rai is knocking on the door of being inside that top 50, invited to a lot of those signature events.
Jason, before you go, because I'm looking at these FedEx Cup standings, and I can't imagine that is there somebody that people are rooting hard for, like the casual golf fan is rooting harder for than Gary Woodland, who right now is 71st. He's moved up 4 spots, but he's not inside the top 70. And he's T9 right now. So he's got to keep this up and really kind of move up a spot or two to get inside the top 70. Your thoughts on that? And I know you had something else as well.
Poor Gary Woodland woke up this morning. He was number 70. He hasn't even gotten to the golf course yet, probably. And he's now 71. Yeah. I don't know who moved in front of him, but yeah, there's definitely some movement. Everybody rooting for Gary Woodland right now, and stop it with the Twitter trolls. I put that exact line on Twitter yesterday that, there's not anybody who's not rooting for Gary Woodland, and a few people chimed in going, yeah, well, what about the guys who are trying to get into the playoffs too and are going to get, yeah, okay, all right, there's 3 guys.
Thanks for that.
Against Gary Woodland. Thank you. Everybody else is rooting for Gary Woodland, who's one of the best dudes on the PGA Tour, won the Courage Award less than 2 years ago. He had surgery for a brain lesion that we've all heard about now. He got very emotional yesterday with Amanda Balionis on CBS talking about what it would mean for him to get into the playoffs. Look, I have downplayed this top 70 thing throughout much of the week, saying, look, let's not overstate it. I mean, yeah, guys want to get into the playoffs, but you listen to a lot of the players, they're like, I kind of want a few weeks off too. If I don't get into the top 70, like, it's not the end of my career. It's not the end of my season. I'll still play in the fall. It's fine. But listen to Gary Woodland talk about what it would mean to him. And, it's obvious that, this would actually be the culmination of something very big for him to get into Memphis and a personal journey for him. So who am I to criticize and downplay the fact that it doesn't mean as much? I will say, though, top 50, as Mike talked about there, top 50 after today probably is a little bit more of a carrot dangling in front of these guys than top 70. You start to get into all the signature events for guys like Jordan Spieth and Aaron Rai, who are like kind of on that border right now. Yep. That is a massive, massive motivator for these guys today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also looking at Nikolai Højgaard, who honestly looked like he was going to go full Micro Thorbjornsen in terms of what Thorbjornsen did last week. This week, he started off really poorly and managed to make the cut. He is currently 73rd, down 2 spots from the beginning of the tournament. He's on the course right now. He's going to need to make a few birdies to get inside the top 70 there. And by the way, as you were talking, Jason, wow, that's amazing. Gary Woodland is now 70th. He moved up 1 spot as you were talking about him, which is pretty cool. You keep talking, he's going to keep moving up spots.
We'll be top 30 by the end of the show.
There's a lot going on here. Emiliano Grillo putting together a couple of good holes as well, and he's got something to play for. Currently 65th, so he's got to keep. He's got to at least stay at 6 under par. All right, there's a couple other matchups I wanted to talk about. Again, if you have questions, put them in the chat. This one's kind of obscure, but somebody brought Sami Välimäki to my attention on Twitter yesterday. He's up against Matty Schmid. He's a dog minus 105. Anybody have any thoughts on him? Välimäki, who's been playing pretty sustainable golf against Matty Schmid here, taking the dog. Mike, any thoughts here?
So this one is interesting. Look, I think Välimäki is probably the better player. Matty Schmid is someone to me that is just really streaky, and he's played some great golf for his level over the last few tournaments and weeks. I'm not going to get in the way of that right now. So I think Välimäki, probably better, but I'm not getting in the way of where Matty Schmid is right now.
Jason, you agree?
I couldn't have fewer thoughts on this matchup.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, how about this? How about this other one that caught my eye because of, and that's totally fair, by the way. I'm not putting money on this one. Although the Chris Kirk one, I just might pull the trigger. The only reason I haven't is because I'm already so invested with the top 20, the without market and the outright, of course. Let's go to Jacob Bridgman plus 110. And Josh, you don't have to find this one. I have it sort of in my head here. Bridgman is plus 110 against Mike, your guy, Harry Hall. One thing I noticed about Bridgman that kind of pleasantly surprised me, and I'm a Bridgman guy, I wasn't sure he was going to be hitting fairways this week, but he has been. And I don't know if I got to check. I don't know if he's been clubbing down and just kind of doing the Ben Griffin thing, but he's been really accurate off the tee. And anytime that's the case, I really believe in Jacob Bridgman's putter. So I just think I like Harry Hall, but I think plus 110 is maybe too good of a number to not consider here. Mike, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I have a slight lean, believe it or not, to Bridgman. And I like Terry Hall coming into this. I've been a little disappointed with Hall. I believe he's losing strokes off the tee and approach this week. We know him to be a great putter. He's definitely not three putting. He's gained some strokes with that putter, which is kind of expected. But I don't think, given what we've seen so far this week, that the minus 135 is warranted. I think the minus 135 was warranted from where they were ranked pre-tournament coming in. I don't think it's warranted for what we've seen over the first three rounds and considering where they're at on the leaderboard in terms of there's no legitimate shot of a top five result.
I'm looking, Jason, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but somebody asked about your guy, Jackson Koiven, and his matchup. And I'm actually, for some reason, I can't find it yet, but I'm looking for it. Remind us what you had on Jackson Koiven. You had him laddered this week or just in the top 20 market?
I just went top 20 and I talked about a potential ladder. I laddered him a few weeks ago. I talked about him on the Tuesday early Wedge show, Sia, because not only, and I think a lot of times when we're playing an amateur in a PGA Tour field, we're like, I don't know, he's pretty good and he's played well, but I think there was more at play for Jackson Koiven. He's a guy who's very precise, so the accuracy part of playing this golf course helps. He's a great putter. His coach told me a few weeks ago from inside 15 feet, like other guys just like walk away. They're like, that's good, just take it. I mean, he just doesn't miss from inside 15 feet. He's essentially what Jordan Spieth was 10 years ago when he was coming onto the scene as a young 20-something player and made seemingly every mid-range putt. And he's a North Carolina guy. So, he's got some like hometown flavor for this one. I think it could be another really good round. He's got literally nothing to play for and just like go out in there and freewheel it and, fire at some flag sticks. If he finishes second or he finishes 11th, it really doesn't make any sort of difference in his career. And I think those guys are the most dangerous because they're not thinking about FedEx Cup points. They're not thinking about the money because he can't earn any this week. It's just go out there and play good golf. And I think that he has a lot less at stake than everybody else. And that could mean something this week. As far as the Harry Hall play, I want to get back to that because Hall's a guy that, like Mike, I'm a little disappointed in this week. I thought it was going to be a really good week for Harry Hall. That said, I just want to point this out. If you're looking to fade him today, especially in that matchup against Bridgman, I don't mind Bridgman, but Harry Hall ranks 31st in round 4 scoring average on the PGA Tour this season. Last 9 Sundays, 67, 68, 70, 68, 66, 65, 69, 69, 71. And I know those numbers don't mean a whole lot without seeing scoring average and where it ranked it as far as the field, but nothing worse than 71. And usually most of those, 7 of the 9 inside the 60s. Dude tends to step up on Sunday afternoons. It's why he's moved up in the world ranking, why he's moved up in the FedEx Cup points list, because he plays some good golf when it matters. So I would look for him to do that again today.
Yeah, I mean, those are really good sort of stats to drop there because I do think it's relevant how people sustain themselves going into and through round 4. Matt Tram says Kirk minus 135 over Meisner. I do think Meisner is going to backpedal. And by the way, if you remember the live chat, Mike, there was somebody who asked about a 3-ball. I can't remember who they liked, but Mac Meisner was in the 3-ball. And I said, I don't know. Mac Meisner kind of jumped out at me when I was doing my initial research. I'd probably lay off that one. And there's Mac Meisner at the top of the leaderboard. I mean, it's not It's a little pat on the back. It's not exactly a victory lap because I didn't take Mac Meisner anywhere, but anybody who might remember that question, I'm glad I might have gotten somebody off of that play. I do it's minus 135 is a lot, but I think Kirk is going to be better than Meisner. I could see Meisner backpedaling. Nick Conway says, hey, Mike, Mao to beat Wallace in 10 minutes. Mao is plus 110. Do we like William Mao? I'm a big William Mao guy. I don't know. Wallace has been pretty good. Probably be a stay away for me. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, more of a stay away. Look, I think that neither one's going to carry a ton of name value. I think Wallace carries a little bit more name value, and we've seen a larger sample size, but I like Mao. I almost played both of these guys, though, full transparency, though, in terms of like DFS this week. I did get a lineup with Mao in. Wallace was a manual decision to not play. So these were two guys that were firmly in the group that I wanted to back and bet on. Having said all of that, at the default, I would, if I had to play this matchup, it would certainly be the plus 110 side.
All right. Here's what we're going to do. Everybody who knows how the structure of this Sunday show, by the way, thanks for joining us. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We do this every single morning at 10:30, answer your questions and kind of tell you where we're headed on a Sunday morning and afternoon. What we do is we do what you just saw, and then we cover next week's tournament for like 5 or 10 minutes. And then we just kind of a quick look, and then we circle back to see what's going on the course and kind of like formalize last minute bets and last minute looks and things of that nature. Mike, I know we have you for like 5 to 7 more minutes. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a very quick break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the FedEx St. Jude. Mike's going to drop off, and then we're going to come back again. When we wrap up the FedEx St. Jude quick look, we're just going to circle back to this Wyndham Championship and answer your final questions and give you some final thoughts. So the show is not over when we wrap up the FedEx St. Jude. We're going to cover that FedEx St. Jude right after this very quick message from our partners.
Here we go. The 2025 CBS Sports NFL schedule is here. 18 glorious Sundays.
He's got his receiver, touchdown.
Filled with rematches.
Oh, the play of the year.
And rivalries.
Touchdown, Bengals.
Plus, plenty of superstar showdowns. And an epic matchup between the Chiefs and Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Clear your Sundays beginning September 7th for the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
We are back on the Early Wedge, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. And we want to take a very quick look at next week's FedEx St. Jude, maybe talk about a few players that we may like. It's the playoffs now, right? We've got the top 70 that are playing. So again, a 70-person field. It's the playoffs. We got let's see, TPC Southwind is a par 70, 7,200 yards. We're looking at very small greens, water in play on a ton of holes, 10 or 11 holes where water's in play. We've got ball strikers that we're looking for. Mid-iron play is certainly going to be between 100 and 200 yards, certainly going to be maybe 125 and 200. The proximities we're looking for. Scrambling around the green might come into play with these small greens. We got Bermuda greens. I do think, Jason, this is a little bit of a similar setup to Sedgefield. Maybe you just add water in terms of like the type of golfer we're looking for. What are you looking for out here, Jason?
Yeah, it makes sense. There was a correlation 2 years ago. Lucas Glover won in Greensboro and then went straight to Memphis and won there as well. I'm just looking at ball strikers. I mean, I know we do this 75, 80, 85% of the time when we're breaking down PGA Tour events, and I know it gets redundant, but I'm looking for really good iron players who hit the ball really well from the fairway, and you're that 125 to 175 range. It's who hits the best 8 irons, 9 irons, and wedges is usually going to be up there this week. And I mean, I can start looking at some names, but it's not going to be anyone that blows your socks off that you go, wow, I've never heard of that guy. It's going to be a lot of the best up on the leaderboard this coming week.
Yeah, Jason, perhaps you and I will go back and forth on just a few names that just jump out to us early on a Sunday. But Mike, I know you have to drop off in a few minutes. So let's get your thoughts on TPC Southwind. And maybe if you have a few golfers in mind, if you don't, that's okay too. It's Sunday. We're not even done with the Wyndham yet, but any golfers that come to mind, and what are you looking for at TPC Southwind?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be the approach play. Strokes gained approach. We talk about it every week, as Jason mentioned. I think it's as critical here really as anywhere. You bring the water into play, but it's going to be a lot of the best players, as Jason mentioned. Guys that rate extremely well in approach we haven't seen in a couple weeks that I think their numbers can always be fascinating. Sepp Straka, Victor Hovland, things like that. Those are just guys that they get kind of lost and forgotten because they're certainly not in that top elite tier of golfer, but they are when it comes to the approach play. Until we see the field, we're not going to see numbers, unfortunately, until we know exactly who's there. But look, it's going to be a lot of the same, and it's going to feel a lot more like a major in terms of the names that we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Jason.
I want to make one point here, and this is less from the betting markets, more for those just, looking at it from a golf fan perspective. We've been talking about the FedEx Cup now for 20 years and what it means, the evolution of it. And this is like the proverbial, like, plug one hole in the dam and another leak bursts right through it because, we've had staggered scoring at the Tour Championship for the last 6 years. And people are like, it's really gimmicky and it's really stupid. From a betting perspective, we're like, okay, Scotty Scheffler's at 10 under before he even starts. Yeah, I kind of like Scotty Scheffler this week at minus 300 or whatever. I mean, it was just really dumb. They've fixed that. No more staggered scoring at the Tour Championship. So we say, okay, collectively, we're like, great, cool, thank you. You fixed it. It's no longer gimmicky. Well, what's the byproduct of that? Rory McIlroy says, well, there's no point in me playing then because I'm already in the Tour Championship. So he's skipping the first week. It may be this is like some sort of, I don't know, like I got to show the PGA Tour that I don't like the new amendment to this rule or whatever it might be, but he's certainly taking a stand and not showing up in Memphis. And there's no reason for him to do it. And he can take off the week of the BMW if he'd like. And he gets into the field of the Tour Championship and still has just as much chance of winning it as anybody else. I do think that when we start to see numbers for FedEx Cup winner, I might look a little further down the board. It's not necessarily the Scotty, Rory, Xander kind of show anymore that somebody can get hot like Lucas Glover did a few years ago. Just go win the Tour Championship. Go play the best golf at East Lake, and you're going to get a trophy and $15 million, and you might have a decent number next to your name to start the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers on I don't know when they're going to come out, but I don't know if it's going to be when the Tour Championship starts, but they're going to look like regular tournament numbers, like regular odds that we see on a regular tournament. Mike, with Rory not being here, before we let you go, I mean, Scotty's going to be the prohibitive favorite as well. He should be. Is this the type of thing where we look at, like, I've been looking at the without Scotty Scheffler market like pretty much all year. I'm going to do it again. But is that something you're going to do?
Yeah, I think so. I think there will definitely be some interest in that market for me. Another guy that I'll mention now that I'm probably going to end up playing is Justin Thomas as well. I think we're going to catch decent numbers here, even with Rory gone, taking, freeing up some of that true win equity. I do think I'll be on JT a little bit here as well.
Okay, Mike, any final thoughts before we let you go on the FedEx St. Jude?
No, just keep watching Emiliano Grillo finally making the birdies we thought he might all week.
Yeah.
Hopefully he lands inside that top 40 for a few of our sakes. And,
that's right.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
That's right. Absolutely love it. I mean, this is all very interesting, not just with our bets, but with the top 70 and even the top 50 stuff that people aren't paying quite as much attention to at the moment. All right, Mike, well, I'll see you tomorrow on the DFS show for the FedEx St. Jude at 7:00 on this SportsLine YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us. Jason, I'm going to go back to you. Let's name a couple of names. I'm going to start because Mike named two names that I had, and these aren't groundbreaking names. There's 70 people. There's like 35 of which we think have a true chance to top 10, top 5 win the tournament. He mentioned Victor Hovland. I have 5 names that I wrote down, and I did it these are not names I'm necessarily betting, but they're the names that jumped out to me at first. We'll refine these as the week goes. But he mentioned Sepp Straka, who I don't have quite as much faith in as I might have a couple months ago. Everybody else would say that too, but certainly, could turn it on. And Victor Hovland. Now, I know around the green and short game might come into play here, but just the ball striking of Victor Hovland, I do think this is like a really decent course fit for Victor Hovland. I love his talent. I love his upside. So those are the 2 names that jumped out to me of the 5 that I wrote down. How about a couple of names from you, and then we'll go back and forth.
Yeah, I was on Hovland at the Scottish and the Open Championship, and if I don't get on him this week, it's more just oversaturation from me just jumping on Hovland too often recently, which is probably a bad way to look at it. This could be the Xander week, quite frankly. Xander
but
runner-up last year. I feel like it's coming. And again, this may be more narrative from me, and I've told the story many times that he and I were talking earlier this year, and I sort of said that, what, could be a blessing in disguise, that 2 months off in January and February, that later in the year you've got more gas in the tank. And so I keep coming back to that. but I do think that like it's going to manifest in something for Xander at some point in the next month or two. And again, whether that's this week, whether that's Tour Championship, whether that's Ryder Cup, like I think something's coming for Xander.
I feel the problem is, so I think you're probably right. I feel like the problem is we've said that now for like 6 weeks, and he's been okay, but he just hasn't been able to put it all together. And I feel like we're kind of, from a timing standpoint, we're kind of creating this construct around when he's going to come around versus, when the PGA Tour season, when the playoffs end. And it's like, well, that might not be the proper construct for when Xander comes around. It could be in January, he starts blitzing the field and he's like, whatever, just maybe everybody's just as rested, but like he's just in prime form. He's captured his game. He's accelerated all of those things. I just don't know if it's his time, but I do like the fact that if I don't bet on him, listen, Xander's one of the top players in this field. So like the betting market's going to respect Xander for sure.
Yeah. And without Rory, I think it hurts. With Rory in the field, that bumps Xander down to probably third or fourth on the board. Maybe he's got like a 14-1, 16-1 number if we're lucky. Without Rory, obviously that's going to be shorter. And so I'm not saying that I'm necessarily betting him, but like for one and dones, if you're still alive in a one and done and you're like, I've been hanging on to Xander, there's no real way to use him. Like I think he could be of use this coming week. I'll throw a name out at you. A guy that played well, obviously at the U.S. Open, had a really nice summer, has maybe tailed off just a little bit, but Sam Burns.
Yes, that's my guy. So he's not one of my 5 names because I don't know. I guess I worry about the off the tee stuff a little bit, but I don't know that I should. I love Sam Burns. I mean, listen, I've been betting him and it hasn't exactly come to fruition for me, but I think Sam Burns could win one of these he could be like the sneaky guy that wins one of these playoff events. I don't hate that at all. I'm going to go Harris English. Your thoughts there? I mean, he's become a better ball striker. You don't need to be long here, but like he's a little longer off the tee than he used to be. I don't know. He just seems to show up at big events.
Makes a lot of sense. I did not have him written down, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense. He's played the big ballpark so well this year.
Scrambling. Scrambling. I don't know what the weather's going to be like. It's probably going to be fine other than being like sweltering.
But gross. It's going to be gross. I've gone to Memphis. I'm going there on Tuesday again this week. I've gone there the last 3 years, and it's like the 7th circle of hell. Like no offense, Josh. I know he's a Memphis guy. It's not fun in August. I'll put it that way. That I will say only my second least favorite tournament I've ever gone to in August. Back when they had the PGA Championship in August, and it was at Southern Hills in Tulsa. Tulsa in August is not very much fun either. I'll just throw it out there.
Yeah, I've never been to Tulsa. No plans.
Tulsa in October might be perfectly beautiful, and you have a great time. Tulsa in August is a little impressive.
All right, let's go to a couple more names. I'm going to give you 2 more. I'm going to give you Jacob Bridgman, who is a guy that I have not been on for the last 6 to 8 weeks, but at the beginning of the season, I really liked him. I just like what he's doing at the Wyndham in terms of what specifically he's doing off the tee. And I think if he reins that off the tee stuff in, I like him as a long iron player, and I don't know that this is a long iron course, but again, I like how he's playing right now, and I know he can get hot with the putter. So I like Bridgman, and then I'm just going to go right back to Chris Kirk. I think it's a fine enough course for Chris Kirk. Again, I do think there's plenty of comps to Sedgefield, add water and smaller greens, obviously, too. There's some other differences, but I think Chris Kirk, if he can succeed at Wyndham, which I liked him as an outright, I think he can succeed here. Again, that would be more of like a DFS, a without market type play with Bridgman and Kirk, but those are names that jumped out to me. How about 1 or 2 names from you?
I will give you my usual floor plays. I don't know if I can bring myself to stomach playing either of them outright, but I think for top 10 plays, they'll probably be like, in a short field, plus 150 type top 10 plays. I think they make a lot of sense. Tommy Fleetwood and Russell Henley, guys they show up every week. They're really good iron players. Do I like them to win? No. Do I like them to be up there somewhere on the first page of the leaderboard? Yeah.
Yeah. Does Henley have a good history here? That's something I should have looked up. I mean, you feel like he should. I know he was 30th last year, but
and he was 6th the year before.
Okay, that makes sense.
7 of his last 8 rounds, 68 or better. I didn't go back. I just did quick research this morning and didn't go back and look at like the old FedEx St. Jude Classic, because if you look up the FedEx St. Jude Championship, prior to 3 years ago, it takes you to the Northern Trust, which wasn't even the same region of the country. And so it's a little, you got to do a little extra work there to figure out the course history. That said, 2 years ago, it's a course that should suit him. And again, I can't bring myself to bet Henley outright. I mean, this is a guy who won for the first time in a few years earlier this year at the API, only because he had a chip that was steaming through the green, hit the stick and go in on 16, and then admitted afterwards he was extremely nervous over 3 and 4 footers for par on the final 2 holes. If he's not that confident in himself, this is my general rule of thumb on betting PGA Tour players. If they're not very confident in themselves, then I'm probably not going to be very confident betting in them.
What if, though, Jason, he's just the person that admits it and everybody's nervous over the putt?
No.
Like what if that's the case?
You know what?
What if Brooks Koepka's actually nervous, but he plays the other?
And admitting that he's nervous over 3 foot. I don't get it. Tiger Woods might have been nervous over 3 footers. You think Tiger was going to come in after winning a Masters when he knocks in the 3 footers like, whoo? I don't know if I can knock in that 3 footer at the end. Oh, I was so nervous. No, he's like,
that's fair.
3 footer. I hit the hole, then it gave me a jacket.
Yeah, that is fair. That's good stuff. All right, before we are going to revert back to the Wyndham round 4, but before we do that, Jason, any final thoughts on the FedEx St. Jude? Maybe not even from a golfer standpoint, a course standpoint. I mean, you've been out there, you're going out there on Tuesday. Anything we should be looking for, something that you saw that maybe being on the course people don't see?
I would look towards, and this is probably mostly for round scores, matchups later in the week, that there are going to be guys who are starting the week at 61st and shoot even par the first 2 rounds, and they kind of know they're dead man walking on the weekend, and they just want to get the season over with. I think we can find a little edge there in those players. So keep that in mind. I know we're talking like 6 days from now, but you're gonna find these guys that are like, I can't move up. I have nothing else. You see this bib behind me? That's Brendan Steele from the 2018 BMW Championship. The reason I caddied for him in the final round that day is because, first of all, his caddy took off. They had rain out on Sunday, and so it extended to a Monday final round. But he couldn't advance to the Tour Championship. And he was like, whatever. His caddy had been on the road. Christian Dahl had been on the road with him for 8 weeks in a row. He lived over in England. He's like, don't change your flight. Go home. I can't advance. And he's like, let's just go out and have some fun and like finish out the season. There's going to be a bunch of players like that next week that just, they know they can't advance. They just want to like, let's just get it over with, get out of town and go relax and have some downtime. And so I think as bettors, even though it's not something that might affect the tournament result, we can take advantage of guys for whom it matters versus guys for whom it doesn't matter.
Wait, real quick. You caddied for Brendan Steele in round 4?
Yeah.
How did that conversation go? He tapped you on the shoulder? He texted you? Like, how does that even happen, though?
I was standing there. He's a good buddy of mine. We've become pretty close over the years. I was standing next to the scoring area. He was telling Christian, like, this is Saturday afternoon of that event. We're probably going to get rained out tomorrow, which he was correct about. He said, I'll just find someone to caddy for me on Monday. Like, don't change your flight. Leave tomorrow. It doesn't matter. And he turned to me and goes, Sobes, want a caddy?
Oh, my gosh.
I'm like, sure. So caddied 18 holes at Aronimink in a group with Phil Mickelson and Brian Harmon. They started on the back 9. There were no fans out there. I mean, even for Phil, no fans out there other than 3 of my buddies from Philly who were yelling at me. Like, Phil's looking at me like, seriously, dude? And I'm like, would you like me to shut them up? They're like, let's go get him, Sobel. And like, Phil's like, dude, I've got like 5 majors at this point. He's got 6 now, but he's like, really, they're yelling for you. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. But we had fun. We had a great time. I have a career scoring average as a caddy on the PGA Tour of 68.0, which, Sia, I think that probably puts me in the top 10 all time.
Maybe top 5 all time.
Right?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Jason Sobel, caddy of the century.
Doesn't have a 68 scoring average. I'll tell you that much.
That's amazing. I feel like we need to dive deeper into that story, but we're going to close shop for now. Only not on the show, but only on the quick look at the FedEx St. Jude and the quick look at Jason Sobel being a caddy for Brendan Steele. We've got a lot to kind of revert to, though. So, again, show's not over, but that's going to call it for the FedEx St. Jude. Thanks for joining us for this portion of the show. Much more coming FedEx St. Jude related and FedEx Cup playoff related on the DFS show tomorrow at 7, the Best Bets show Tuesday at 7, and of course the live chat at 4 in this show Sunday mornings. All right. Jason, we do have to revert back. I am sweating this Paul Peterson matchup. People are giving me updates in the chat. I believe he has a 1-stroke lead on the final hole, and I don't want to look at my phone the whole time. So if you guys want to help me out with Shot Tracker and let me know if either of them are in the fairway and things of that nature, go ahead, Jason.
Words never before uttered in the English language. I'm sweating this Paul Peterson matchup.
Yes. I've been Paul Peterson's biggest fan. I mean, Jason, round 1, I didn't have this on the early wedge. I had it on the early edge. I think Wednesday morning, I put out a Paul Peterson 3-ball. It was over Stephen Fisk and Quade Cummins, and it was plus 180. And I'm like, yeah, let's go. Paul Peterson is like the course. I mean, he's not a tremendous player, but he's the course fit for somewhere like this. And that ended up cashing pretty easily. It was 5 under after round 1. Cummins and Fisk were decent. They were 2 under, but I'll ride that Peterson train. Let's see how this goes. Again, I know Xavier's been updating me in the chat. Maybe some others who are also riding this with me. Jason, I know we were just talking about FedEx St. Jude. Are you seeing anything out on the course that would like sway any opinion? I'm noticing Grillo is 3 under through 9, which is music to a lot of the early wedge listeners here. Michael Theo Bjornsson, 3 under through 11. Jeff Stenberg's in the chat. I'm sure he loves that. Riedel is 4 under through 15. Some low scores, Jason.
Yeah, mostly low scores out there. There's a handful of players who are over par for the day. Just want to get out of town, like I was mentioning, for next week at the FedEx St. Jude. Guys who are not going to advance, and the season's just ending, and or the regular season at least, and winding down. Jordan Spieth is open with a birdie. I would look at this if I were Cameron Young right now, and I don't think he should be surprised by any of it, but he needs to step on the gas pedal a little bit today. I quite honestly didn't love what I heard from him yesterday in his post-round interview.
What did he say?
The one that he did with SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio. He said, yeah, tomorrow, I'm just looking to like keep it in play, hit greens in regulation, do my thing. Hitting greens in regulation, that tells me you're trying to play defensively. If you're just saying, I got a 5-shot lead, I'm just going to go out there and just aim at the middle of the greens and, you've got to go out there and make some birdies. If he shoots, and I'm not suggesting he's going to make 18 pars and shoot 70, but that might not be good enough to win this golf tournament. I need to see Cam Young step on the gas pedal a little bit. I love the fact that he's got a new caddy on the bag, former college teammate at Wake Forest, who I think that's exactly what he's needed. He's run through through a lot of caddies over the last few years, and I think having someone that knows him and understands him probably works better for Cam Young than just hiring a guy who's been there, done that for a long time on the PGA Tour. But all of that said, he's going to need to step on the gas pedal just a little bit. Doesn't mean like let's fire at every flag stick, try to shoot 62, but he might need 67. Don't go out there and just say I'm going to aim at every green regulation and just try to make pars out there, because that's not going to be good enough.
I would love to see. I mean, listen, this is a betting show more than it is anything else. So, I mean, I want to see Cameron Young win from a non-betting standpoint, but I do, because I think this would be an epic collapse given what his career trajectory has been with respect to like winning tournaments and not winning tournaments. With that said, I would love to see him bring some players in the mix with like a 1 over through 3 where Echeverria and Rye and Kirk and maybe Meisner, Koiven are like 2 under through 3 or whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden this huge lead is down to 3 or 4 strokes on Nico, or let's say 3 strokes on Nico and 5 or 6 on the rest of the pack with 15 holes to play. So I'm interested in that. Are you even considering Nico Echeverria at plus 650 here? And if not, are you bothering with the without market?
No, I've got some Nico pre-tournament. I've got some Nico parlayed with a few women's open plays that may or may not. I have a little glare on my screen. I can't see, but Yamashita, I believe, is still leading that golf tournament. I was looking at both Ryo Takeda and Alim Kim. I think they're both still chasing as of right now. There's some bad weather this morning, but it looks like it's gotten a little bit better. I've been waiting for Yamashita to fall down the leaderboard a little bit. She's just not going away as far as I can see. All that said, I've got enough Nico there. I'm really probably staying away from most of it from a personal standpoint, just because, Cameron Young, I bought him with, again, a couple of parlays with the Women's Open, just trying to get somebody on there, get something on the board. But, it's the Nico without market, or the without Cam Young market, but Nico with that market at even money, that's the one that really interests me the most, I think.
It's now, just so everybody knows, it's now, okay, it's plus 100. Some places that also had it at plus 100 now have it at plus 110, which doesn't mean much. It means maybe Aaron Ryan and Kirk or maybe even Meisner and Koiven and Fitzpatrick maybe taking a few bucks here and there. So you like Nico there. He's got a 3-shot lead in that without market. He's done such a good job around the greens and with the putter that I'm hoping, even though he's good on Bermuda, I'm hoping he backtracks a little bit. Because again, just so for those of you that joined the show late, I made a play. I think I literally I got to go back at 0.6 units. Let's call it $60 on Chris Kirk at plus 800. And I put like 2 very small sprinkles. And I don't usually do this. I'm just trying to have some fun on round 4 because Cam Young has sort of stolen my fun. So I put a very small, like 0.1 on Aaron Rye, 0.1 on Jackson Koiven. And I'm just hoping that Meisner and Fitz don't catch them and Nico falls a little bit. And worst case scenario, I break even. Best case scenario, I 7x my money with Chris Kirk at plus 800. All right. It looks like Jason Sobel, we cashed our Paul Peterson round matchup that I put out. If you don't follow me on Twitter, it's very often, not only on the early edge do I put on matchups. And Jason, can I tell you, early wedge, I don't have as many round matchups, right? You'll see them from time to time. Mm-hmm. But my round matchups that I've put on the early edge, I got to go back and just double check this. And these include 3 balls as well, some of which are like plus 180, plus 130, plus 150, but mostly matchups like head-to-heads. I think I'm like 12 for my last 15 on the early edge, if not 12 of my last 14. I've been on a really, really nice run. And so these plays, because we don't have the early edge on Saturday and Sunday, these plays I tend to tweet out, sometimes put in the SportsLine Discord as well, but I tend to tweet out the night before. I don't always tweet out a play for a round 3, round 4 matchup, but I'm happy to see this one hit as well. We're on a really, really nice run. Jason, final thoughts here.
You deserve that. Anyone who's grinding to bet Paul Peterson in matchups deserves to get some ROI back in. I
mean, it's funny. You know what I love, Jason, is when my eyes get big for 2 no-names in a matchup, and I'm like, oh, I think this is value. I think I like Norlander, by the way, but I was thinking, wait, Norlander's the favorite here at minus 120. I think it should be Peterson. And my eyes get big, and I go back and I double check, triple check a bunch of different things, and those are my favorite plays because you know this as well as anybody, Jason. It's those guys where the market might not be right on. It's very easy to be efficient on a Scotty Scheffler and a Xander and a Morikawa matchup. It's not as easy to be efficient, and which is why we're hitting Carl Phillips. You hit Carl Phillips at 70-1 in Puerto Rico. It's why I hit William Mao at the ISCO. It's like some of these numbers just are a little off because how are you setting a market on Paul Peterson and William Mao and Carl Phillips? How you doing it?
Sia, you can speak to this better than I can because you're betting and analyzing other sports. But if you want to bet the NFL, guess what? The odds makers know everything that you do and more. If you want to bet, I've heard WNBA, you can find some edges there. You want to bet Ivy League basketball. Like you want to bet the niche sports out there where you can find a number that, hey, I might know more. I'm paying more attention. I do it with the LPGA pretty frequently because the LPGA numbers on the board are essentially, well, so-and-so is playing the best, so she's the shortest odds, and then next. But they don't necessarily look at it from a standpoint of, she's a good course fit and she's been in good form recently. And I can find an edge on the LPGA. I think that you're absolutely right with some of these matchups where they're not the bigger names. They're not the guys the odds makers necessarily paying serious attention to. You can find a little bit of an edge, and I commend you for doing so.
I mean, look at some of these names that Josh has highlighted here. This is just since the early wedge came back, because I know some of us hit outrights before the early wedge came back in. It would have been late February. So this isn't even a complete outright list for the early wedgers here, but Joe Highsmith, 110-1. Carl Phillips, 70-1. I mean, look at like some of these names. Ryan Fox, before Ryan Fox was popular to hit, although actually Ryan Fox was playing well right around then, 40-1. Harris English, we had that without market hit. It was a split, mind you, but these are not, Harris English, yeah, household name, but you got the Carl Phillips, the Joe Highsmiths, the William Maus, things of that nature. Just some of those names are not going to be, the lines just aren't going to be set correctly. So glad we got the Peterson cash. All right, Jason, any final words? So who are we rooting for? What's the rooting interest? Is it a FedEx Cup points thing where we're looking for somebody to get inside the top 70? Is it an outright thing? What is it?
That's part of it. I think part of the day is let's root for Gary Woodland to get into the FedEx Cup. It would mean a lot to him. If it means a lot to him, I want to see him do that. So I think that would be pretty cool. Man, if Jackson Koiven can do what he did yesterday, like go out 4 under through 6, 5 under through 7, at least put a scare in him. I would love to see that. I just think this kid has a world of talent and is going to be a big-time player when he chooses to turn professional and play on the PGA Tour full-time. But other than that, I think Nico puts a run in Cam Young. I think at the end of this thing, there's only 2 guys who even have a chance of winning, but I do think that Nico has a decent chance to overtake Cameron Young today.
Yeah, Xavier says still like Chris Cook over Davis Thompson. I can't remember what the number was on that because I don't think that's the 2-ball. It's a different matchup setup. But I also like Kirk over Davis Thompson. I'm rooting for Gary Woodland to be inside the top 70. I'm also rooting for Nikolai Højgaard, who's definitely on the outside looking in. He's going to have to put a back stretch together that's pretty good. I'd like Grillo to make it. He's tucked inside the top 70s, currently 64 as he's on the course. And then, of course, I'm rooting for Chris Kirk to do something wild in the first handful of holes to bring himself in the conversation because I've got a pretty big investment on him. I mean, it's an outright, so it's not, you know what I mean? Like the return on investment on Chris Kirk would be amazing. I've got him in the without market. I am quietly, though, if Cam Young runs away with it, good for Cam Young. Like I want guys like Cam Young to win, even though he's on EC's do not bet list.
2 things. First of all, if Cam Young wins today, he will be the 1,000th ever winner on the PGA Tour. The first one, I mean, this is going back like literally every sanctioned event, going back to 1860 when Willie Parks Sr. became the first winner of a PGA Tour sanctioned event some 100 years before the PGA Tour even existed. He would be number 1,000. So that's kind of cool. He's on the do not bet list there. There was a question there about Davis Thompson. Davis Thompson, for me, I love his game. He looks like a golf robot. He's got very little personality, but he's got a ton of game. Just hits it a mile. Davis Thompson has been doing the Patrick Cantley, Tommy Fleetwood thing of, I'm on the leaderboard. Let me make sure that I back off. And as soon as I'm far away enough from the lead that I can't really scare it, let me go step on the gas pedal and play some good golf. I don't know exactly how you want to bet that, but I don't know. Davis Thompson is very frustrating.
Fair enough. All right. As I see Grillo in the fairway on the 11th at 7 under par. Again, I have the Chris Kirk top 20 and my other finishing position was Grillo top 40, both at plus money. So we're hoping those cash as well. 1,000th winner. Jason, maybe Cam Young was waiting for that the entire time. Maybe he was waiting for the gravitas of being the 1,000th winner and he finally was able to put the foot down on the pedal now that he's eligible to be the 1,000th. I think that's what it was the whole time.
Possibly. I bet he gets a nice cake with like 1,000th on it if he does win today.
Good stuff. Well, everybody enjoy round 4. We've got, as you know, we've got so much content coming your way, not only on the SportsLine YouTube channel, but also on CBS Sports Network. I know we've got a show Friday afternoon in the middle of round 2 that we're going to bring to you. But yeah, the DFS show, 7 o'clock tomorrow, the Best Bets show, 7 o'clock on Tuesday, the live chat, 4 o'clock on Wednesday, the network show on Friday, maybe another network show as well. I'm not sure. And then, of course, Sunday morning, we do this show at 10:30. Jason, thank you very much. A big thank you to Mike McClure and, of course, to Josh, who was just doing so many things behind the scenes on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s. Jeff Stenberg, Joseph Bozes, Xavier, so many in here. I can't say all of the names. It would take too much time, but appreciate everybody being in here. Hef Sterling, hitting the like button and all those things. Really, really appreciate you. Enjoy round 4. Let's make some money. Let's have some fun watching golf, and we'll see you next time on the Early Wedge.